What's up, guys? Welcome back to White Sox Daily once again. And we've got some fairly big news on this week's episode here as we kick things off with a bit of news from Sunday. And this is the big one. We've discussed it a number of times leading up to today on a bunch of the previous episodes. Talked about some speculation that a slower than expected market for a big Japanese power hitter in Munetaka Murakami could lead to the Chicago White Sox being able to potentially make that big push to sign the big-time slugger. He plays first and third base. Corner infield being a huge position of need for the Chicago White Sox at this time. And of course, obviously just in need of A, power, and B, more left-handed hitting in this lineup on top of course, the obvious needs at pitching, and that will still surely, hopefully, please, oh please, oh please, be addressed at some point this offseason. But for now, the big one, they actually did it. It's not just speculation. They actually went and signed a free agent we wanted them to sign. What an insane and ridiculous world we live in. We live in a world now in Chicago where the Bears can beat the Packers in an important game that matters, and the Chicago White Sox are out here signing big-name free agents. I'm not sure what happened. It might be the time to, I don't know, prepare for the end times or something. Who knows? But a golden age here in Chicago ever since the Pope got elected, being from the South Side. And yeah, everything coming up White Sox right now as the Japanese slugger going to join on a 2-year, $34 million deal. Murakami, a guy just 25 years old. He was actually the youngest free agent in this free agency class in Major League Baseball this year. A guy that obviously coming off a career over in Japan where he was the all-time single-season home run leader. In the Japanese Pro League that he played for the Tokyo Yakult Swallows, where he belted 56 home runs just a couple of years ago. Came right out of the gate, 36 home runs as a 19-year-old playing in that league. A guy that has just displayed incredible power, batted .273 as well. Last season, he's a guy that's not necessarily like a complete, just power and nothing else type of a batter. He's a guy that makes good contact. He can put it over the fence. He can bat for average. His biggest weakness to this point has just been his whiff rate, where a lot of the times he's getting hits because his batting average on balls in play has been almost identical to his actual batting average. He hits the ball, he gets on base. It's that simple. But when he's not going to get on base, he's usually just missing the baseball altogether. It's a wild, wild batter, but a guy that obviously Shohei Ohtani had very similar issues when he came over. They ironed that out. Now he's Shohei Ohtani. The White Sox absolutely banking on the potential to kind of iron out a couple of those little smaller flaws in his game, and you've got a potential superstar on your hands, a guy that absolutely could come in here and lead this team in home runs as soon as 2026. A real home run, big-time swing the White Sox took on a guy with a big-time swing. This is a massive deal for Chicago. This will probably be the move of the offseason that we're talking about through the entire rest of the regular season when, obviously spring training and opening day and all that finally roll around. I think we're going to look back at this as the move that Chicago made in the offseason that really kick-started and helped really get this rebuild rolling in the correct direction here. Obviously, we've already got a nice young core that the White Sox really like. You've got Colson Montgomery. You've got some young pitchers. You got to add to it, but you've got a couple of good ones you like. They've got that brilliant catching rotate. They got basically a three-headed monster behind the dish right now. You've got Lenyn Sosa, Chase Mydroth, guys you trust in the infield. Miguel Vargas was solid last year. Whichever corner position now you want to put Murakami in, You can put Vargas on the other one and feel really good about it. You got a lot of top-end prospects coming up through the system, and I think this is going to be a huge move for them. Just 25 years old, bright future ahead of the Japanese superstar. But one player that they might not have in 2026, and the speculation's been out there for a long while. I've personally always been on the go ahead and try to keep him train, but there is now concrete evidence. We got a legitimate ears to the floor confirmation that the Chicago White Sox are taking phone calls from both the Cincinnati Reds and the New York Mets at this time as it relates to a potential Luis Robert deal. Both of those teams, the most likely thing that the White Sox are targeting, according to the Scores article on it, would be pitching. They want pitching from either of these teams. Both of them could really use an outfielder the caliber of Luis Robert, and both of them have lots of pitchers on their major league roster and in their prospect pool to spare. They've got surplus in the world of pitching right now, and that's what Chicago is looking for in return for Robert. They want a haul. We already know that. Chris Getz has made that very clear. He's not just trading Luis Robert just to trade him. He wants what he feels is fair compensation for a superstar of Luis Roberts' caliber. So you'd imagine that they are going to be asking for some top-end pitchers in return if they are going to give Luis Robert up at this time. You have to figure that if they trade him before this season even begins, that we might be looking at a potential situation where Braden Montgomery maybe gets the fast track up to the major league roster. I still don't think he's an opening day player, but perhaps maybe a little bit sooner than we previously would have expected, maybe just a few months into the season. Certainly you'd have to start looking at a potential post-All-Star break call-up this year, and it's not maybe a multi-year project at that point. But yeah, we've got word now, the Chicago White Sox in talks with both the New York Mets and the Cincinnati Reds in regards to a Luis Robert trade. We've also got some other outfield possibilities for the White Sox. Should they be really convinced that this is something they want to do and they want to move Luis Robert, a new big power hitting outfield target has just become available as the Cleveland Guardians have made the decision to waive one of their big name prospects. Nicknamed Big Christmas, after they signed him out of the Dominican Republic back in 2017. We're talking about Jahankasi Noel, a guy that has been putting up massive home run numbers in the minor leagues to this point. Noel, a guy that has kind of seen his average dip as he continued to rise up the ranks from lower A to now up in high triple A. The home run power stayed there the whole route, constantly hitting high-end, over-the-fence, big-time hits. Obviously had some struggles last year, hitting just 162 when he finally made his big league call-up for Cleveland. But a guy that's just 24 years old and has displayed, like we said, massive superstar home run potential. A guy that has a lot of weaknesses in his game. You want to talk about, we discussed earlier with Murakami, some things that would need to be ironed out. This is a guy that would have a lot that would need ironing out. But, potentially someone you might just want to take a swing on. He's designated for assignment. He's going to have to clear waivers if the Guardians want to keep him and send him back down to the minor leagues. If you're the White Sox, you go ahead and throw in a waiver claim on him and just see what you got there. I mean, give it a go. Why not? 24 years old, massive home run potential. You need power bats as desperately as you do. And, you're in the middle of a rebuild. This is the time to be experimenting, to see what is and is not out there as far as the talent pool is concerned, free agent-wise. Might be something that the White Sox could look into. And finally, we'll wrap up today's episode kind of looking back at last season and kind of the difference in the beginning versus the end. Chicago White Sox, the tale of 2 months, kind of summarized in their April versus July spreads. Obviously, April not going the way they wanted. They went 2-2 in March right off the bat. Okay, fine, nice, decent 500 start, opening series, okay. And then it just tanked right off the bat, tanked. 5-21 in the month of April. Whole season, flush it down the toilet right off the bat. Everything's over at that point. And then, coming out of that All-Star break, that's really when things seemed to change for the White Sox. Obviously, you had a bunch of call-ups. You bring in a bunch of young guys. But July ended up being the one month where the White Sox ended up with a positive run differential through the 2025 season. They also, it was their only 500 month of the entire season. A team that obviously then in August suffered a couple of big-time injuries, kind of sent them back down a bit. But there was a lot of things to be excited for towards the end of last season, and the hope would be that that just continues to roll into 2026. You guys let us know, how do you feel about the big-time Murakami signing, and do you feel like it is possible to get a little bit of momentum carryover from the end of 2025 as we enter this 26th season? Let us know in the comments section below. This has been White Sox Daily. I've been Aaron Feely, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.